Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today, How I Ended Up with My Boss's Job. After that, Is my mother entitled, or is this a normal situation? After that, My son is in the next classroom. After that, I'm not an airport worker, I just play one at O'Hare. And after that, do people not know how to wait? Now Karen told me if we get 1,000 likes on this video, she won't yell at anybody for an entire week. So please smash that like button. And if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. And by the way, become an official channel member today and I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming video. How I ended up with my boss's job. I was working for an advertising agency, a pretty big one. I had an unethical manager. Well, when I started out, I had a manager who was one of the most unethical managers I've ever dealt with. He'd order his sales reps to do things that would increase his bonuses, which are based on margins. Example, say a client decided to buy product XYZ and their spend was $2,000 a month. He would want the agent to put up products ABC and keep the spend at $2,000 even though the client didn't agree to that. Fact is, the clients generally wouldn't notice, but if they did, it could cost you your job. I was the guy that refused his demands. He would tell me to cheat the clients, and I would refuse. He would get mad, I wouldn't care. This went on for quite a while. Now there's something I don't tell people very often. I live in a one-party consent state, which means so long as I'm aware a conversation is being recorded, I can record it without informing the other party. I had just upsold my largest client, making him even larger, but I didn't sell the products my boss wanted me to sell. He demanded I switch things around. I refused. I told him I sold the client XYZ, that's what we agreed to. I'm not going to change that without the customer permission. His exact words were, "Forget the customer. This is your largest client. I need him on ABC, or I'm not going to make my number." I'm sorry, but you and I both know ABC isn't right for this client, and that's why he didn't buy it. "You're fired. If you can't follow instructions, you're fired." After confirming he was dead serious, I said, "If you do that, I'll have your job by the end of the month." I went home. I didn't think he'd go through with it. Sure as heck, next morning, I'm locked out of all our systems. I call tech support and get told I've been fired. So, who do I call? I call our regional vice president and tell him I have several recordings I think he should listen to. Remember, my boss ordering me to do unethical things wasn't common. So I meet up with my RVP and play 6 different recordings that I had saved showing my manager was pushing his agents to break the law. To which my RVP leaned back in his chair and let out a sigh, knowing he had to fire my manager. Having a sales manager that is forcing his reps to break the law is just bad business. At which point I asked for my job back. He agreed that I would get my job back and asked me to take the week off and call him on Monday. He told me he'd talk to payroll and make sure I got paid for this week as well. For your information, he fulfilled all of his promises with me. Although I missed a payday, but got back pay later, so I was fine with that. That Monday I came into our Monday morning meeting in which my RVP was there. He informed the entire team that my boss had been fired and why. He also mentioned that if anyone wanted to apply for his job, there was now an opening. So I applied for, and after 3 rounds of interview, got my promotion. Sure as heck, I was right. I did have my boss's job by the end of the month. It was glorious the first day walking into his office and sitting in his nice big comfy chair. Next we've got, Is my mother entitled, or is this a normal situation? Important aspects. My mother had to quit her job because of medical issues some 2 months ago. To financially help the family out, I decided to get a weekend brigade. Obviously, it takes a lot of my time. It can take me up to 2 hours to get to school in the morning and up to 4 hours time spent by hanging out because next bus is scheduled in 1 hour included. To get home in the afternoon/evening, traffic and my bus goes only every 1 hour. My family has a small farm and I do a big part of work around it. Not that much this part of year, but still pretty time consuming. Even though I have this busy schedule, to keep psychologically and socially healthy, I spend time playing games, being out with friends and girlfriend, which is something my mother always strongly objected to. I never really thought about my mother being entitled until this incident. We've got me, we've got Dad, Mom, and Eva, my girlfriend. I was playing GTA Online with friends and Eva when Mom came. "Are you playing that stupid game with them again?" Realizing that an argument is inevitable, I tell my friends and Eva that I have to go and turn the PS off. Me. Why? "You haven't done all your chores yet." Me. Not to be audacious, but like what chores? Don't forget, I'm the one who gets up at 4:30 to not basically stop until evening, so you don't have to feed the animals and clean their feces. Mom. "You didn't sweep the house." Me. "Well, I got home at 18:30 and was around the animals for a further hour." Mom. "You'd be home earlier if you didn't go out with that girl of yours. Ice skating, and even better, your phone would still work." I fell and it slid out of my pocket, hit the ground, hitting its already badly damaged corner and bounced. Just before I hit the ground, I fell with my elbow directly on the mentioned corner, causing even more cracks to the LCD panel and now destroying the touch sensitivity in the right side of the display. Me. "And what has my already before barely usable phone to do with this?" Dad now came to see what this was about. Dad. What is wrong now? "He's playing that game with those people again." Dad. "Let him be. He had a long day and deserves to have some time for his friends and games." "But he was already with that girl of his and still has to sweep the house." Dad. "So? Look at what he is doing for the past 2 months, and look at what you were doing. He deserves some time for himself. You're welcome to substitute his work around the house." Mom. "But that..." Dad. "Not an excuse. He did the same amount of same work even when he couldn't use his left arm at all. And you can't sweep the darn house because you can't stand for long periods of time? You're still healthy enough to do basic housework. In case, we're all here to help." Mom. "He'd have much more time if he let the games and people go. Family is more important." Me. "So is my mental health, friends, and Eva though. I would not last long being in a never-ending circle of sleep, school, work, sleep." "Not an excuse. No friends, no games, no Eva or whatever the heck her name is, as long as you live in this house." Me. "You do know that I have resources and a reasons valid enough to pack my stuff and live in a dorm room near my school." "No, you don't have either." Me. "Well, you have no right to hold me here since it's causing a lot of stress for me." At this point, I was fed up with her attitude and proceeded to plan B. Me. "You know what? You're right. Your house, your rules. My salary, my support, as well as my thing, what I will do with it. Rethink your attitude to me and what I'm doing, unless you really want to do my part of work here." Mom went nuts on me, but I just messaged Eva that I am coming overnight. She's usually fine with it, and so are her parents, unless, you know. Me. "Look, not repeating myself. I do the best I can, but need some time for myself. I seriously don't have the nerves to listen to this constant crap. I'm going to Eva's. See you tomorrow. Good night." Mom again objected, but Dad backed me up. This happened yesterday, so still awaiting results. I hope Mom changes her attitude and I won't have to go to the dorm. I'll try to keep you updated. Update. There actually was another argument yesterday between me coming back from work and posting the story. To keep it short, me, Dad, and Mom tried to discuss the situation. Dad confirmed his intentions with lowering the overall workload and said that Mom should do some actual work or go work as a cashier in a local store, always hiring, so I can quit mine to have more time and less load. She obviously used her condition as an argument. Well, honestly, forget her. She can't stand for longer periods of time, so she won't sweep the house. I basically couldn't use my left arm at all for a month. You don't realize how important a body part is until you can't move it, and still did all my normal work. This morning she ranted about how I'm not doing anything and how I should do something. This is my scheduled day off. No work, no brigade, no schoolwork, no nothing. Just a day to relieve and relax. Next we've got, my son is in the next classroom. First post here. Since I work in kid education, not school, we teach them programming in extra scholar hours. To me, it's more a matter of which story to tell, but I think today was a good enough one, if short. So, quick info. The place I teach in has big windows on the walls between the classrooms and the wall between the classrooms and hallways. One class is roughly 10 students. This little play actors are me, the entitled mom, and the kids of the class. So I'm teaching class, everything is going well, and the kids are pretty focused, though we talk and joke a bit as well, when suddenly entitled mom comes in the hallway. We normally forbid parents from entering classrooms during the class because we strongly advocate for kid independence and letting them experiment without parents breathing down their neck. We have special times for sharing with their family after the class, which we set up for that very purpose. So entitled mom is in the hallway and she peers into every classroom to locate her kid. She finally finds him in the classroom next to mine, which is the only room to not have direct windows into it from the hallway, just the door, which is closed. So the only way to see the inside of that room is through the wall in my room. So entitled mom can't wave her kid, and so she decides to enter my classroom. So then starts waving at him in the middle of my class, disturbing it quite thoroughly, kicking the kid's bags around as she paces. Now, I rarely deal with entitled parents because I do not tolerate BS in any form, and I can have a bit of a short temper. My kids know how little BS I take, and they all like that with me, the rules are clear-cut. So they know what's about to happen, and they all look at entitled mom with the happy, cruel, oh, she's gonna get it, look of kids seeing someone else getting scolded. I cough once to get her attention, and as she turns around, I stare her down like the rude fool she is. And then, entitled mom. What? Me, in a calm, level voice. Ma'am, in case you failed to notice, I'm having a class, so you're going to return outside. But my son is in that other classroom, and I wanted to see him. Me. Ma'am, the kids I teach are capable of understanding such clear and simple instructions easily enough. Are you not able to do the same? As I say this, I point to my kids, and they are all holding back laughs. Yes, in a minute. My son... Me, cutting her off, making her glare at me. Ma'am, your son isn't the one interrupting my class. He's following his own class. I asked you to get out because your presence disturbs my class. You will leave now. At this point, my kids start laughing because the now is usually my trump card with any of them that make troubles. If I use the now in that very special tone, it means they're pretty much done for, and the next step after this is me calling their parents. In this case, it would have been me calling my manager, but entitled mom finally got the hint and left the room, under the kids' laughs, and grumbling about how she would talk with my manager about my conduct in class and my education skills, at which point I just turned to the kids with a big smile. I did not get into any sort of trouble. Entitled mom got a second lecture from my manager about how parents are not to enter a classroom unless it's an emergency, and her own kid, when class ended, gave her a very loud complaint about the whole thing. I might end up sharing more. Like I said, I got a lot of those, about once a week, but most aren't very interesting, just basic level of entitled parents. We'll see. Next we've got, I'm not an airport worker, I just play one at O'Hare. I was in the Chicago O'Hare Airport, getting there around 9 p.m. at night, and a bunch of flights had been canceled there. I was flying from Omaha back home to Florida. Well, I finally got my flight home squared away, having to go through DC the next day, and it was time to find a hotel for the night. At first, I was on hold with the airline while they looked for a hotel within my budget, which was actually very high since work was paying for this, and I was on the phone for at least 30 minutes or so while this guy was making calls to local hotels. After that, I was looking online myself and even on VRBO. So I decided to sit in the closest seat I could find during this call and my search, which was located behind an information desk. And this was just a desk. A simple, everyday office desk, not like one of those huge information circle desks built into the structure. I had my luggage right in front of me, so if people bothered to actually see me, they would know that I was a traveler just like them. I even started talking to two other ladies that took up camp on the desk in front of me while they searched for hotels too. There was a sign on the desk that read "closed," but it was likely hard to see given the other people sitting on the desk. Anyway, I probably got asked at least a dozen times about where something was in the airport, where was a good place to eat, if I knew any hotels in the area, where were the overnight cots set up, etc. When the first person to come up to me asked me something, I figured they thought I worked at the desk, but I listened to their question in case I could actually help. Yeah, I couldn't. So as time went on, I just kept telling people I was just traveling and didn't work for the airport or any airline. Not one person was rude or yelled at me, despite everyone being tired, frustrated, and likely hungry. After the first few people came up to me, I thought about moving somewhere else, but there honestly wasn't anywhere else to go. That place was packed with upset air travelers. The first time it happened, I was actually like, oh, maybe I'll have something to post on Reddit. But no, all my encounters were normal and pleasant under the circumstances. For those interested, I actually ended up having to spend the night in O'Hare. I now call it the O'Hare Hotel. I met up with a lovely woman who ironically was headed to Omaha where I had just came from, and a nice guy a few years older than me. We hunkered down in a long, very lit hallway for the night after finding some cots, blankets, and pillows. The airport also hands out these little sundry bags, which was convenient. My airline tried to reroute me all over the East Coast to get me home, so early in the AM when they woke us up, we had to get up at like 5 when the airport officially opened. I booked another direct flight on a different airline for around 7 in the morning. I'm glad work was paying, so I was lucky to have the option. I know a lot of people were really stuck and at the mercy of the Chicago air gods. And this was June 2018, by the way, so not related to bad winter weather at all. Next we've got, do people not know how to wait? So my parents and I went to Longhorn Steakhouse for my mom's birthday. It's a Saturday and this place just opened not too long ago, so it was pretty packed. The wait was an hour when we got there. Since it was so good, and this was where we wanted to eat, we waited. Another thing I should mention, this place was packed. People would probably be standing outside if it wasn't winter. First part, it was only a couple minutes since we were given a pager and started to wait. A man, and whom I assume was his wife, came into the restaurant. He was behind her, pushing her wheelchair. She just had a broken leg/foot and didn't say anything, and he was the entitled dude of this part. When he was told the wait time, he said loudly, "An hour? Forget it." He then backed out of the door, very annoyed. My parents and I immediately thought he was a jerk and were making fun of it. People were coming in and out. A lot of people just didn't want to wait and left, and one group actually left while waiting, saying they wanted to cancel. While we waited, we also noticed across the way there was a little kid, probably 8 to 9. I'm terrible with age guessing, that was 5 seconds away from a meltdown. Her face screamed, "Why do we have to wait?" The only thing keeping her calm was her phone. My parents and I brought up the fact that when I was young and would make a fuss, I was left alone or taken out of the place. After a bit, my dad noticed a couple of chairs that were open and told my mom and I to sit down. And after a while, the man next to mom moved over one for my dad to sit down. After a while, we noticed them, the entitled lady and her 2 friends. Since they didn't say much, I'll just call them man and lady. The woman, however, will be called Karen. First thing, Karen was standing right in front of one of the shelves they use for menus and right in the path of the waiters trying to seat people. She kept having to move and just kept going back to the same spot and talked to man and lady. The waitress at the front was already obviously stressed out and had one of those cubes that you can fidget with. Karen was practically touching her, she was so close. Then she did one of the most annoying things I ever saw someone do. She hovered over the waitress's shoulder and was looking at her wait list, listing the times to man and lady. The waitress had to block the screen so the Karen would stop, but that didn't stop her since she was very obviously trying to look at the screen. Basically, the entire time after, my parents and I were making fun of her entitled attitude and other entitled people. I brought up the time my mom's boss wouldn't reschedule a visit so she could be able to see me before I went to Spain. Another story about an entitled jerk that I'd be happy to talk about if people want to hear about him, and other stories I have about entitled jerks. After a while, we got up to be seated. We didn't even fully get up when this Karen almost knocked me over to get to our chairs and was just like, "You gotta get to those seats before they're gone." My mom was pretty annoyed at that, but we just followed the waitress to our table and had a great time making fun of the Karen and her annoying attitude for a good 10 minutes when we sat down. And shoutouts to our Regenerals of the day: Subster the Weirdo, Meliodas Wrath, Object Time, and Pato Tato. Become tomorrow's Regenerals by leaving as many Rees as you can in the comments below.